Hi guys, welcome to the third edition of our weekly podcast, Long Shot. Sharad, how are you?
I'm very good and good to be here.
Awesome. So how was your last weekend and how is your future weekend looking?
Last weekend was all right and the week was all right as well. And let's hope the future weekend is good as well. And let's see how it goes.
Great. Do you have any plans?
Not really. Not really.
Right. I hope Mr. Jaitley gets some rest this weekend. I mean, last Friday he really charged up the Twitterati with all his stuff on the economic review.
Intruded into our Friday evenings, yeah?
Trust me, we didn't have much plans.
Yeah, that's true.
Great. So, Sharad, you have been very busy writing. I saw your splendid piece on Hotstar and Flipkart. There were some noises around a potential deal, which were then vehemently denied by both the parties. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, it's sort of, I wrote that on the back of Tuesday's press coverage where, a lot of news reports were reporting on a potential deal wherein Flipkart was expected to or was reportedly buying a stake in Hotstar. And, when you sort of peel the layer, you realize that there are a lot of nuances which did not really add up to me. So that's what I just put my thoughts on the piece. And, generally speaking, I mean, at such Flipkart-Hotstar tie-up, if you think about it, seems very similar to Amazon Prime Video, wherein if you use content and e-commerce and bundle together. But an investment of this nature did not really seem very similar or parallel in my view. First of all, you can have that kind of an arrangement only with just a partnership, and I think they already have a Flipkart Plus partnership with Hotstar, so an equity investment seemed like an overkill. That was one of the things that I could not really understand. And second,
but you couldn't understand the rationale from the perspective of Flipkart or from the perspective of Hotstar?
Both. And that's a good question. So from the perspective of Flipkart, I can still see that there might be an edge where they can uplift their entire membership play by getting use of some data points which they can get access to if they invest in Hotstar. Now that's highly debatable because we don't even know what the size of the stake is and how much they'll be allowed to actually even access their data library Hotstar. So that sort of was the only thing that made sense. But from Hotstar's perspective, it just doesn't add up to me. I mean, they're owned by Fox, which is about to be taken out by Disney. Deep coffers, capital is not an issue, well-resourced company, access to North American capital markets. So it just can't be just capital. So there has to be something more, and I just don't see it from from Hotstar's perspective on why they would want to dilute itself and even entertain an equity injection from Flipkart. It seems like a forced fit rather than a very natural, intuitive fit. I just don't see the rationale from the other side.
But what about things like monetization, right? I mean, Hotstar, we all know, is very much ad dependent. They look at sports programming in a big way. They get spikes and lumpy revenues out of ads. Their freemium service is frankly not really the core to that business. So do you see any synergies between Flipkart and Hotstar from a monetization perspective, or that's a bit of an overkill?
That's again a very interesting point because you say that, because that seems to me one of the only rationale that probably might resonate with Hotstar is sort of trade off a little bit of their lumpiness, as you said, lumpiness in their revenues with a sort of recurring revenue base, which you can get from someone like a Flipkart in a membership arrangement. Now, again, I mean, without looking at the economics of such a partnership model, you can't really comment on it, but that could be a rationale. But it just seems very unnatural to me when I look at the overall. If I look at the transaction in its entirety, it just seems there are a lot more questions rather than a natural fit. But yeah, I mean, I've covered it in the article, so yeah.
Awesome.
And I know I'm going to throw it right back at you and switch gears here, but you've been following the IL&FS with great interest, and we've had so many discussions at work as well on what you think, and you've had strong opinions. So what do you think? What's happening? Walk me through it.
I frankly didn't have any opinion, but then I started really looking deep into their financials and figuring out what they really do. And yeah, it's a black box, I must say. I mean, just to give a bit of an update. Basically, IL&FS is a RBI regulated, so-called systematically important investment company. People think of it as a private sector, or people think of it, as a public sector entity. That's primarily because one of the largest stakes in IL&FS is from LIC.
Even I used to think that until very recently.
Yeah, so they are heavily entrenched with the government. They are basically providing a lot of infrastructure financing to projects done by NHAI, different government agencies. There is also a lot of grapevine going on that many ex-bureaucrats end up there, or many ex-bureaucrats' kids are also there as interns, get a lot of roles there. So it has become like a bit of a blob of mergers between the state and the private sector. Well, coming back to what really happened, they came up with a press release of 29th of August in which they spoke that they are doing a rights issue of around 4,500 crores to shore up their capital. They want to also recapitalize their group companies to the extent of around 5,000 crores. And they're also doing an asset divestment plan to reduce their debt by 30,000 CR. Okay. I mean, in a nutshell, they are a heavily leveraged financial firm and they are suffering from a liquidity problem.
What's the sort of leverage at right now?
So currently they have around 90,000 crores of debt.
Oh, wow.
So they are right now at around 11 times their EBITDA.
That seems high.
Yeah, and that 11 times came from 8.4 times just an year back. So they are really levering up quickly.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that, I don't even know, frankly, if debt to EBITDA is the right way to look at them, because at one point of time, you might think that they are a bank. But if you really go a bit deep down, you realize that they are an investment company, frankly, with no business model.
Yeah.
So the reason why I say no business model is because, like, typically if you look at a bank collects wholesale funding or deposits and then invests into loans, right? But in case of IL&FS, they collect wholesale funding, they have access to capital markets, but they don't invest it into loans. They actually invest in their subsidiary companies.
Yeah.
So their companies are the ones where the actual operating activity is happening. They have a financial services division, they have an education division, they have a transportation division, environment, energy, skills. And apparently what's turning out is that those individual subsidiaries, they are defaulting on their payments back to IL&FS, be it in terms of interest, be it in terms of dividends. So that's where they are struggling. And I think the biggest tragedy of it all is that the usual soundboard of the Indian economy, Life Insurance Corporation of India, has again been tapped to provide market support.
Will they?
Well, they have rejected the 3,000 crore loan facility that was requested by IL&FS. But I think in the rights issue, they are going to participate.
Okay.
So, there are some strange parallels to the Western world. IL&FS is considered to be a too big to fail institution. Yeah. So, they won't really allow it.
Heard that phrase numerous times before.
Yes. So, I think the result of that is going to be that they are going to become even bigger too big to fail institutions, with the government bailing them out in one form or the other.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Something we should keep an eye on, which should set a precedent in one way or the other for future events, right?
Yeah, I'm a bit cynical on this because this is not the first time LIC has bailed out anyone. Like before that, IDBI Bank was acquired by LIC. Before that, they have invested in SBI, PNB. Basically, anytime, quote unquote, when the shit hits the fan, they are usually called to do some damage control. So I'm
seen this movie before. So you asked me in the beginning, right, what my future weekend looks like. Well, one thing I'm hoping is we don't get another round of a 5-point action economic plan like we got last Friday. Or do you think that'll happen?
I just hope there's more detail on the 5 points which were announced last week rather than new points.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think even the markets are expecting a little more color and granularity. So let's see. But let's just what were the key things? From where I saw, like, primarily just bringing in more dollars into the country, sort of managing that, and hopefully let that positively impact the current account deficit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a current account deficit solve. So they effectively there is some relaxing in terms of if you look at Indian companies issuing foreign denominated bonds. So the government is basically reducing the curbs on them in terms of hedging, in terms of duration. So there's more flexibility. They can raise bonds at a lower rate of interest. But the idea is that there'll be more dollars which will come in the country, thereby bringing in more investment, thereby reducing the CAD. And the second big bucket of announcements were regarding corporate bonds and masala bonds. Again, same message, bring in more rupee denominated funding from overseas or bring in more dollar funding domestically.
And it also tries to position Indian bond offerings more competitively, I guess, on the global landscape by just making it, removing that. I remember reading about that withholding tax of 5%, getting rid of that. So that all seems to all tie in well with the same common objective, right?
Yeah, it does. I think the thing is that from a technical perspective, these all are fairly logical moves. And but the problem is that I think the mood in the country right now is much more from the perspective of the consumer, and a lot of the consumer issues, be it higher fuel prices, be it a weakening rupee, I feel were not really addressed in this economic review, and I would like if there is some more color along those lines as well. These are things which affect really the big corporates, the big institutions, and I understand that they are very important, but from a messaging perspective, I think it would be good to see some consumer oriented actions, especially around fuel prices, so that the markets can ease a bit more. The only consumer-oriented thing I heard was that there'll be some curb on non-essential imports like gold or steel or electronic items. They might get a bit more expensive, but that's not really a positive consumer-oriented view, so to say. So yeah, let's see if there is some more detail on this in the coming weekend.
And we're pushing out a long shot, or have you already pushed it out?
Yeah, so there will be a long shots on exactly this issue. It should be out by the time this podcast goes live.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I think I would welcome the listeners to go through it. Cool. Another very productive discussion, Sharad. Two in a row.
Yeah, it was good. I really enjoy this, and it's good chatting as always.
Great. Thank you all of us, and do check out transprint.in. This is Nikhil.
And this is Sharad.
Signing off.